2017 saw the release of a fairly large number of animated films, and I'll be honest, I didn't see all of them, but I still feel I saw a fair number of them. I saw 9 of them, and I just wanted to give my own personal rankings for these 9 films. And as always, this is just my own personal list. I'm not trying to set up some objective, non-biased list of how these movies should be seen, but this is just my own personal opinion. If you disagree with this list, great. If not, also great. So with that in mind, here is my personal rankings for these 9 animated films that came out in 2017, from worst to best, which is Coco. What else is it going to be? Number 9, The Emoji Movie. What can I say about this movie that hasn't already been said? And it's pretty much all true. This movie is wholly unoriginal, completely derivative, uninspired. The jokes are basically just tortured puns of emojis. It's not funny. The story and the moral of the story make no sense. And it's basically just a cash grab advertisement for phone apps like Candy Crush, Dropbox, and the cloud. But I will say this. I didn't hate this movie. I didn't find anything that was actually offensively bad. The animation, despite being simplistic, is actually well done. And the voice acting the voice actors actually do a pretty good job. Not just Patrick Stewart, T.J. Miller, James Corden, Anna Faris, they all do a pretty good job. So there was at least some effort put into it. Not where it matters, but there was at least a little bit of effort there. But I would also like to say that with the huge saturation of movies that have come out nowadays, this was not a movie that anyone who hasn't already seen it needs to see it. Number 8, Smurfs, The Lost Village. Now I have to give this movie a little bit of leeway because I am obviously not the target demographic here. This movie was aimed at little kids, and I honestly can see little kids getting some enjoyment out of this. But with the exception of some decent voice acting from some talented actors and some rather unique animation and designs that pay honor and respect to the original source material, I do not think this was much of a step up from the Emoji Movie. It's incredibly simplistic in pretty much every aspect, from the story to the characters to the action sequences to the humor. It's fairly predictable, and there's really nothing here to hold most people's interest. This film was made basically for traditionalist fans of the original series and to keep little kids occupied for an hour and a half. Number 7, Rock Dog. Okay, to be fair, technically this is not a good movie. It has too many redundant characters and plot points that do nothing to serve the main narrative of the story. That and the animation itself is so subpar with what we see nowadays from typical big-budget animated films. But I would be lying if I said I didn't actually enjoy this film. I like the characters, I like the designs, I like the music. I actually laughed a few times during the movie. And I did like the way this character, this little sheepdog who has these rather inexplicable powers, and he brings them forth with the power of his music. I would say I think Luke Wilson was miscast for the main role. I like Luke Wilson, but he's just so laid back of an actor to be voicing a character that is so energetic. Number 6, Boss Baby. Continuing the current trend of DreamWorks films, which is, it's better than the trailer made it look. I would honestly give this a positive score. Alec Baldwin does a good job as a title character. The animation, per DreamWorks fashion, is fantastic. It's got some good jokes in there. And it's got those zany, loony moments in it that keep in line with the idea that this is all inside the main character's head. Although they do kind of subvert those ideas at the end of the film, but I still think they handled it well. But there's not really anything special about this movie. You're not really missing anything if you decide to skip it. It's pretty forgettable. Not to mention the over-reliance on poop, fart, and diaper jokes. It's an alright film in its own right, but there are better animated films to see. Number 5. Despicable Me 3. Honestly, I'm not a fan of the Despicable Me franchise. I didn't care for the first one. I liked the second one a bit more, and I felt Minions was completely unnecessary. So going into this film, I wasn't expecting much. Coming out of it, I'd say my expectations were met. It has some good characters. Gru and Lucy are actually pretty good. The Minions, despite some of the problems I have with them, are actually kind of fun. The little girls, they're cute, though I am starting to wonder if they're ever actually going to age. And the main villain in this film, Balthazar Brat, is actually a lot of fun. And I think, honestly, he is the best villain in the entire franchise. But the film also has some major story problems, primarily in the fact that there are way too many subplots that, for the most part, don't really have anything to do with the main story. The main subplot revolves around Gru and his relationship with his newly found twin brother Drew, and Drew's desire to get Gru to come back into a career of villainy. And I think they could have handled it better, and I think it could have been resolved better. There's another one involving Lucy and her trying to connect with the girls, and it's resolved like that, way too fast. There's another one involving the oldest daughter catching the eye of this boy. It's introduced and then dismissed, like that. There's another subplot that I actually did kind of enjoy involving the youngest girl, Agnes, searching for a unicorn. And then there are the Minions themselves, whose sole purpose in this film is to divert away from the main story. Seriously, they are the pure definition of the word tangent in a movie. But they are the most marketable aspect of this franchise, and obviously it works, because the film made over $1 billion, so yeah, most likely we're going to see more of them. Number 4, Cars 3. There's not really much to say about this film. Like most people, I'm not a huge fan of the Cars series. I liked the first film. I thought it was pretty decent. I did not like the second film. I thought it was pretty boring. This film, I think, picked up the series again, but that's not really saying much. During the first half of the film, it really drags its feet and nothing really interesting happens, though it does get better during the second half of the film. It recycles a lot of the plot threads that we've seen in the previous movies. The main competitor, Jackson Storm, is the exact same guy we've seen in the first film, just a different model and a different paint job. They also reuse the plot thread that Lightning needs to learn to be nicer to his friends. And at this point in the franchise, it's like, okay, we get it, he's a jerk, please move on. But it's not all old, there are some new things. The main plot of the story revolves around the idea that Lightning may be getting too old to race against the new blood, so to speak. Also, I found that the only character I really liked in the film was Cruz Ramirez. She was the only character I found myself really connecting with. Number 3, Ferdinand. This was a really interesting film because there are some moments in this movie that are really, really good. The first 15 minutes of this film, when we see Ferdinand as a calf on the ranch and then escape to live with the family that he grows up with, are the best moments in this film, in my opinion. But it is just too kid-friendly, and I think that's what keeps it from being a great film. That and some of the characters are a bit too exaggerated in their personalities. Aside from that, it's got some really good voice work, they did a good job with the story, and it's got some really good character animation. Number 2, the Lego Batman movie. In my last video, I ranked this film as number 5 when I was ranking superhero films. Here, for animated films, it's number 2. That's the unfortunate state of animated films this year. Last year, I had 3 animated films in my top 10 favorites of the year, 2 of which were in the top 3. This one didn't even crack my top 20. But hey, nevertheless, it is an enjoyable film. I did like it. Will Arnett brings a natural comic element to the character of Batman. And props to Michael Cera, Rosario Dawson, and Ralph Fiennes. They all did a wonderful job with their roles. I just wish some of the jokes could have been better. I think they could have done something else to give Joker a more unique character than they did. And also, I didn't care for the Imagination Land aspect of the film. Bringing all the villains from a portal into the real world to attack the innocent. Yeah, I saw that in South Park, and when I saw it again here, it comes off as silly. Maybe somebody else liked it, and hey, I'm glad. I just didn't care for it. And my number one it's Coco. Like I said, what else is it gonna be? For such a lackluster year for animated films, I am so glad we can finish 2017 with at least one great one. And surprise, surprise, it comes from Pixar. This film has heart. It's got great, memorable characters, beautiful music, gorgeous animation, and it tugs at your heartstrings. There's a surprise moment in here that I honestly didn't see coming. I was so focused on the red herring that they spent so much time developing that it threw me for a loop. Now, I already gave my review for this film, so I'm not going to go into any more detail, but I do want to say that I think Coco single-handedly saved 2017 for animated films. Now, with 2018 on the horizon, we have two high-profile animated films to look forward to, both sequels. One from Walt Disney Animation Studios, the sequel to Wreck-It Ralph, the other from Pixar Studios, the sequel to The Incredibles. And with these two films, maybe, just maybe, 2018 can give us hope for a better year for animated films.
You see what I'm doing? See? Do you see?
Then again, maybe it won't.